Shadow Slave. By Guiltythree. Chapter 12-16, On the Run. Crap, crap, crap. Sunny did not know what the creature pursuing them was, exactly. He had hoped that the possessed corpses were not the vessels of a single being, but instead separate abominations, akin to minions of a tyrant. But even if they were, there was obviously a way for them to share information. He knew it because his hopes were being crushed right in front of his eyes. If there was no way for the puppets of the Gate Guardian to share knowledge, then he could have pretended to be oblivious to their presence and bought some time. But the 7 taken masters were all seemingly aware that Sunny could tell what they were. They slowly started to move. At first, their movements seemed inconspicuous, but it quickly became apparent that they were encircling those ascended who remained human. There were eerily human smiles brightening their faces. On one side, there were 7 possessed corpses with the power of a great abomination. On the other side, there were Sunny, Nephi's, Kai, Effie, Jet, Seishan, Morgan, and 11 more unaffected masters. Morgan had 3 transcendent echoes left. Seishan had 1. Sunny had Saint and Nightmare. And Imp. In fact, the scrawny goblin was the linchpin of their survival. Get everyone to come closer. Sunny had already explained the situation to Morgan and coordinated with the rest of his allies. Their only chance to survive was to run. But escaping from the ring of possessed corpses seemed impossible. Nevertheless, they had to try. Knowing what to do, Morgan calmly looked at the 11 ascended who had not been taken by the Gate Guardian yet and called, "You there. Come here. I have questions about our rations and water reserve. You, too. How many tents can we make from that hide?" The masters left what they had been doing and walked over. By that time, even they started to notice that something strange was going on. One group of people was standing in the center of the hollow tower. The other group had spread out, surrounding them. The ancient steel was groaning as it was assaulted by the wind. That is all. There are also 3 ascended outside. But only 2 of them are human. Lady Morgan. What is going on? The human masters seemed confused. Meanwhile, the other humans were slowly shifting, assembling into a loose battle formation. Their weapons were already in their hands. Sunny was the only one who remained motionless. What was the point of trying to fight 7 great abominations? Come closer. It's almost time. I just need a few seconds. Morgan looked heavily at her subordinates, then said evenly, "Come closer." They glanced at each other, then hesitantly took a few steps forward. At the same time, the smiling corpses took a step forward, too. "Kai, now." Sunny's shout was drowned out by the groan of twisting metal. And then, that groan was drowned out by Kai's voice. The handsome archer only spoke one word, but it enveloped the space within the hollow tower entirely, echoing in its dark expanse, "Stop. Arg. Hell, N-1. Sunny had never been on the receiving end of Kai's ascended ability, or rather, he had never been the subject of its negative influence. His friend usually used the power of his voice to inspire soldiers and ignite their desire to fight, win, and survive. But that was not the only thing he could do. Nightingale's true power was to compel living things and bend them to his will. When Kai had commanded everyone to stop, it was as though the world itself froze. Sunny was still able to move thanks to his impressively high mental defense, but it was as though a mountain had fallen on him. It was not physical weight, though. Rather, it was incredibly hard to remember why he wanted to move, in the first place. With some effort, he managed. The others were similarly affected, resisting the command with varying degrees of success. Even the 7 corpses stumbled. However, they shook off the effects of the command almost instantly. Still, it bought Sunny the couple seconds he needed. Because at that moment, the whole tower suddenly shuddered. And collapsed. There was a deep groan of tearing metal, a shrill screeching noise, and then wind and light flooded the interior of the steel finger. That was because Imp had gnawed through the outer layers of the tower, of course, going most of the way around it. Sunny had summoned the gluttonous goblin immediately after noticing the lookouts of the survivor group. While he was greeting Effie, talking to Morgan, informing her of danger, and observing the 7 vessels of the Gate Guardian slowly surrounding them, the ravenous fiend was busy stealthily eating through the exterior of the steel finger. And just then, the tower finally couldn't support its weight and toppled. The cool shade filling its interior was instantly torn apart by blinding sunlight. But plenty of shadows remained. Calling upon them, Sunny instantly manifested dozens of dark tentacles. Some of them wrapped themselves around the bodies of those corpses that had not been buried under countless tons of steel, only to be instantly destroyed. This was just a distraction, though. The rest of the shadow tentacles grabbed the humans, and unceremoniously tossed them out of the way of falling metal, into the merciless heat of the desert. At the same time, a whirlwind of sparks manifested into transcendent echoes, who threw themselves at the abominations. Everyone used their own means to slow the enemy down. There were screams, there was noise. There was an explosion of white flame, and the sharp sound of the air being cut by countless blades. Blood spilled. Falling onto the white sand, Sunny rolled and jumped to his feet. Run! Most of them had made it out of the tower, but 5 out of the 11 ascended that Morgan had called were nowhere to be seen. The white dunes around them trembled, and then exploded, and a vast cloud of sand covered everything in sight. Kai held Effie's hand as he soared into the air. Nightmare appeared out of the darkness, rushing toward Jet. Morgan had her own mount, which looked like a horned destrier made of steel. Sunny found himself near Nephi's. Without thinking about what he was doing, he grabbed her tightly and stepped through the shadows. An instant later, the two of them appeared a few kilometers away, in the shadow of a tall dune. He had pulled her with him into Shadow Step. Sunny stared at Nephi's with a startled expression, and she looked at him with wide eyes. What? What was that? He opened his mouth, then froze for a moment. I just thought that it might work. What would you know? It did. Sunny couldn't bring other living things with him when he stepped through the shadows, but his aspect had already shown that it treated Nephi's as an extension of him in certain instances. Or rather, it was more like it treated Sunny as an extension of Nephi's. They were connected by shadow bond, which meant that their souls were bound together. Sunny didn't have to like it. But it would be foolish not to use it. Nephi's looked at him for a moment, then nodded. Okay. She looked at him some more and added, "You can let go of me now." Sunny smiled crookedly. "Oh, but I really can't." Just then, a black steed jumped over the dune and rushed down its slope. Jet shouted from Nightmare's back as they flashed past them, "Move. They're following." Burning through his essence, Sunny sighed, and then pulled Nephi's back into the shadows. Chapter 12:17, Bone Tired. They were on the run. The Nightmare Desert welcomed them with immaculate purity and lethal heat, the white dunes stretching toward the distant horizon, the merciless sun burned in the azure sky like an incinerating well of molten silver, and a harrowing enemy was following them across the sands like an inescapable omen of torturous death. "I'm tired." Sunny was bone tired. He had long exhausted his reserves of essence, leaving just enough of it untouched to not be helpless in a fight. Not that fighting the Gate Guardian was a real option. Nephi's might have destroyed one of its vessels, but it had almost killed her. The rest of them did not possess aspects that countered the creature's powers, either. Fighting the puppets of the great abomination meant giving up on life, or, much worse, their very humanity. Blindly advancing deeper into the desert was not much better. There was a terrible foe pursuing the battered group of survivors, but there were also countless dangers ahead of them. The dunes hid all kinds of nightmare creatures, and several people had already been killed in the short, but brutal and unavoidable skirmishes with the wandering abominations. None of those abominations had been weaker than corrupted. The people fighting them were all tired, wounded, and in a desperate hurry, as well. There were only 13 of them left. Looking at the exhausted survivors, Sunny wondered how many of them would live to see nightfall. How many would survive until dawn? The mighty masters were already resembling walking corpses. They were moving forward with grave expressions, suffering silently as the terrible heat pressed them into the ground. Their hair and armor were covered in sand. Those with echo mounts were in the vanguard, those without shakily followed behind. Sunny and Kai were serving as the scouts of the party. Morgan, Nephi's, Jet, Effie, and Seishan were the main strike force. The rest were just trying to stay alive. Worst of all, everyone knew that it was pointless. Even more disheartening than the sea of abominations ahead of them and the great horror pursuing them was the fact that the party was aimless. They had no clear goal, just a stubborn hope to survive. Before, these people had the same plan as Sunny, reach the Black Skull and escape into the waking world. Now that they knew what was out there in the pristine white purgatory of the Nightmare Desert, though, the Citadel had become the source of their fears. That was because Mordred had slaughtered every awakened sent there by Clan Valor. And the corpses he had left behind were the perfect vessels for the Gate Guardian. One great abomination was terrifying, while 7 of them were beyond the concept of fear. What about dozens, then? The citadel that the survivors had been putting their hope into had turned out to be the gates of hell. So, there was nowhere for them to go anymore. Then why continue forward at all? For now, they walked out of fear and out of a growing sense of panicked urgency. They continued forward because there was a creature of pure dread following them from behind. Escape the pursuit, find a place to wait out the night. They would come up with a solution later. I'm really tired. Sunny was walking with Nephi's as his shadows scouted the path ahead. One of them was gliding across the dunes side by side with the swift shadow of Kai, who flew high above. There was no real need for both Sunny and Kai to keep an eye on the same stretch of the desert, but this way, Sunny was able to reach him with the blessing of dusk. Up ahead, behind the crooked dune. Yeah. I sense it. A tall figure in an intricate suit of onyx armor emerged from the shadow. A few moments later, 2 arrows pierced the flesh of a nightmare creature that was slumbering in the shade of the tall dune. The creature exploded forward in a fury of sharp fangs and claws, its roar spreading far and wide across the desert. N-1. By the time it reached Saint, it was shaking under the weight of numerous arrows. One more fell from the sky like lightning, the abomination swayed and toppled, falling heavily into the sand. One more for me. Sunny smiled bleakly. You have a better vantage point, cheater. Then, the smile slowly disappeared from his face. Accompanied by one of Sunny's shadows, Kai was far ahead of the party. 2 more shadows kept to the left and right of the survivors, separated from them by several kilometers of white sand. One more was far behind them. And it was that one who noticed a dark silhouette appear from behind the crest of a towering dune. The figure froze for a moment, then turned and stared directly at the shadow. Sunny shuddered. The Gate Guardian. His dry lips cracked as he shouted, "It's coming. Move." The exhausted masters paled and gritted their teeth. Then, they gathered all the strength they had left and dashed forward, running as fast as they could. The incandescent sun was drowning the world in blinding light and immolating heat. As the shadow that had noticed the pursuer flew away, another figure crested a dune several hundred meters away from it. And then, another. Damn it. Sunny ran, carefully considering his options. He felt aggrieved. He felt indignant. He was appalled at the fact that he had been reduced to the state of only being able to run away and hide, like a frightened rat. But that was, and had always been, reality. Humans were small and weak in the world of the nightmare spell. Even humans like Sunny, conquerors of nightmares and slayer of titans, were no more than mice. I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm tired of being powerless. I'm tired of being weak. I want to be stronger. Much stronger. So much more. Overcome by a deep, painful longing, Sunny gritted his teeth and ran.